All right, welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. Today we are joined by Jason from a lot of bands. I would
A
say
few. I have
a
a few.
few. Today we'll be talking about one of your projects, Breaths, and the latest EP that was released. I should have had that ready to go, but I don't. Yes, it's called Melt Away. That was released earlier this year in January, so it's very recent. Um, yeah, Jason, anything you want to say to provide context before we jump in, or
Sure. So I released this EP as like a preview to my album that's coming out in the summer. I don't have a release date yet, but I've just finished the album about a week ago. So I wanted to give people an idea of where my sound was kind of shifting. Um, I don't know if anyone will notice a difference, but I feel like my sound is less heavy, more shoegazy on this record or EP. So yeah, normally I would have just dropped the whole album, but I get a little impatient and I just like releasing stuff. So
sounds good.
Are you still involved in your other projects? Or
um
how many
so
how many how many projects are there?
so there was Somay, which is no longer because I rolled Somay into Breath. So context on all of that, I had a live band for Breaths this time last year. It kind of imploded later in the year, long story, but I decided to roll my other projects into Breaths. So now I have Breaths and Roseneath. Roseneath is a duo project I have with another guy, Brian. And then I have a live band that's not Breaths. It's something totally different and it's new and it's like heavier, sludgy, doomy stuff. And it's called Violescent. So I have three projects technically: Breaths, Roseneath, and Violescent.
Nice. And
Scaling down.
we've talked about Roseneath before, and we've talked about Breaths before. And so it's kind of interesting that you have these different projects and they have these different sounds, and I guess they're different creative outlets for you, I would imagine.
I kind of look at projects now as who's involved. So, like Breaths, I release like ambient albums. I've got the heavier stuff. It's more shoegaze now, but I'll probably go back to a heavier sound at some point. I'm not really trying to accomplish any one particular thing. Roseneath is me and Brian. So basically anything we make together is Roseneath. It's not necessarily like the style that delineates the projects, it's more the people. So it probably overlaps like sonically. There's definitely going to be some overlap, but yeah, what can you do?
It reminds me a lot. I've heard Maynard from Tool talking about. I mean, he basically has. I guess it's three projects as well.
Yeah.
He's got Tool, and then a Perfect Circle that he's involved with, and then Pussifer.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess a lot of that depends on the scheduling. So, the guys from, I guess he comes in to write melodies and lyrics for Tool, but they create all the music. So,
Yeah.
based on the schedule, but I guess it's also the people involved. So, if you're going to be compared to anyone in the music game, that's probably a pretty good model to have.
Well, Tool was one of my first as a teenager. I think I remember going to get the Inema record, well, on CD at the time, but when people bought CD, I guess they still buy CDs, but when I bought CDs as a
Right.
teenager, I remember buying Inema, and I had heard Undertow, but Inema's like one of my top records that really hit me.
Sure.
I think I was learning to play guitar to a lot of those songs actually.
Gotcha. Was that at a Tower Records or a Virgin Megastore that you were?
My town was not that big at the time. I think it was like a Hastings or a Sam Goody or something like that, like a
Yeah,
mall,
yes.
like a Best
Sure.
Buy, but
Yes.
before Best Buy.
Right. Well, I mean, I think we're all probably, I mean, certainly all of us are familiar with getting CDs. In fact, Heather and I were just talking about having the CD case in the car with you, and that was our equivalent of driving while texting, was flipping through it to try and find the CD you wanted to listen to.
Yeah. I think I had one of those giant books too, right? It was like the
Sure.
size of a folder. It had like 100 CDs or 200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. Um,
Yeah, and they weighed like 50 pounds and
They had handles on the side. You could, yeah. Yeah.
sure.
I think I still have one sitting around somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because in my notes I've written down every type of gaze is represented. Like you had said, this was more shoegaze, but then I
Hmm.
also noticed on some of the tags from Bandcamp it was like shoegaze, black gaze. Um, I'm not as familiar with all the different varieties, but it seemed like most of them were there.
So what
sledge
Bandcamp does
gaze.
is, yeah, you have to like Bandcamp, you have to pick like five genres to
Right.
begin with, and then each release you can add on additional tags. So I think automatically a lot of those are already on every release, even if it's not relevant. And
Gotcha.
then I add more, and I just make up stuff. I just have fun with it, honestly. I'm older. I'm just doing it for fun, and I
Yeah.
just record music at home, and yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, I mean, really, what I wrote down the unifying theme of this, I said the music sounds like you would feel if you're slowly melting into something.
Okay.
If you're kind of just like on a comfortable bed and you start melting into the comfortable bed, that's sonically what the equivalent is. So
That's good. Can I
I
use
don't
that?
absolutely. It's the scene that comes to mind in is in the movie Train Spotting, where where Renton is overdosing and he just sort of falls into the carpet, and then you can
Yep.
see the outline of the carpet on either of his. That's sort of what I thought sonically you were able to achieve.
I like that. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but now I'm in this I take these CBD THC gummies at night, being the suburban middle-aged dad that I am. And I feel like when I listen to it, now that you say that, that's the feeling I get. I just kind of
Sure.
I wanted that washy sort of just not too aggressive, but not too slow, nice and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think you've certainly achieved it. Uh, I have only done gummies once, and I have a very, very low tolerance. So, um, and I think it was like, what was it, Heather? 5 milligrams?
Hmm.
Yeah. Which was too much. I'm probably good for like a half a milligram. And so 5 milligrams, I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is why I never got involved in this when it was smoking, because it
Yeah.
just didn't. But I think if you enjoy, if you have a good experience with it, um, then I think it would provide the same sort of situation that listening to your music can do. Um,
That's
your
good.
music is sort of the sonic equivalent of taking a 5 milligram gummy and just feeling good.
I think I recorded most of the album at night after having taken gummies, so that makes sense. And I have a very low tolerance as well. I not quite as low as you described, but I have 5 milligram gummies and I break them in half. So, I'm looking at two and a half ish. And sorry if there's a doorbell. I think my son is ringing our doorbell.
It's all good.
But yeah,
This is an organic show.
good stuff.
Yeah. I saw
And I
that.
actually,
Oh, sorry.
what
Go
were you saying?
ahead.
No, I was just thinking how I actually meant to send you all my album. I got a little caught up and didn't want to overwhelm you before this show, so I decided not to, but I'll send you the full album very soon, shortly after this.
Cool.
Okay. And I saw that did that Pleasure Tapes. Are they gonna you got signed with Pleasure Tapes and are they gonna make tapes for you when this album comes out? You're gonna have it on tape.
Yeah, we're gonna do cassettes through Pleasure Tapes, and then there's a local label in Richmond called Fisher King Records, and we're going to do some lathe cut vinyl pre-orders. And depending on how the pre-orders go, we may turn that into like a full manufactured vinyl run of like 100, but just depending on how it works out. So either way, we'll get it on either a short run vinyl and short run cassette, but it'll be a nice little physical options. I collect vinyl myself, so I'm excited about that.
That's really exciting. Yeah, and gosh, and like I can't believe the resurgence that cassette tapes have had because
I know. Yeah.
I remember, you know, back in the day having tape decks and having tapes, and they kind of went away for a while, and now they're coming back in a big way.
I had to buy what is it? Like a Philips. I was looking at my cassette deck. I had to buy like a small Philips boombox just because I didn't have any of my old cassette decks, and I wanted to listen to my tapes that have been put out. So I just went and bought a little Philips cassette deck. But yeah, it's fun. When I can't find vinyl, I would collect a cassette next. Would be, I think CD would be my. I don't think I would purchase any CDs if I'm being honest. Not a CD guy anymore. But
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
go on, Heather.
I was just gonna say it's fun. It's cool how different people prefer different media formats. You
yeah,
know, and how collectors. It's interesting the collectors that are out there and what they collect.
I think I had. At one point, I had a couple thousand CDs for sure, and then I remember, I think it was around 2003 or four, I digitized everything, sold my CD collection, I think at Waterloo Records in Austin, where I used to live, where I grew up. I remember selling it, and they gave me like $1,000 for my CD collection, which was insane. Even at the time, I was like, "Really? Are you sure?" Um, I guess if you think about it, it was only like $1 a CD, but now I couldn't even imagine like having that many CDs, even though I'm getting close on records, I think. So I need to slow down. My wife tells me stop buying vinyl all the time. Do
It's
I
really,
stop?
or
Sorry,
wait,
go ahead.
no, no. I mean, what's interesting about Heather and I both bring like she is a record collector, um, and I'm more. I just have, I'm an iTunes digital person.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because we both really love music, but we're coming at it from a very different perspective. Like I think Heather enjoys, and I don't want to speak for you, but the getting a vinyl record, having it, maintaining it, putting it on. There's like a really nice element to that part of it, other than just listening to it,
Hmm.
which I just never. That was never really my thing. Um, growing up, I had CDs and tapes, whatever the medium, but for me, it was more of a practical thing of just like how can I listen to it. And now that it's just digital, it's really easy. But
I went through so after I digitized it, I was like that I did the digital, like I was downloading and buying digital and, um, I don't want to say, I'll admit to it, I was pirating music quite a bit, but anyway, terabytes of music. And I just got honestly tired of maintaining it because I just search for new music constantly, and I was downloading and just having to organize it. And then I started collecting records, and my wife turned me on to Spotify like 5 or 6 years ago. I had listened to it just like, but I had never paid for the service. And now I do Apple Music, but I do my digital Apple Music, and then like vinyl collecting is kind of if I like a record enough, I'll buy it, or stream it if it's just more of a casual listen. But I'm with you.
well, it's you're probably the third person now that we've talked to who um, has a lot. Like you're very prolific. You're recording a lot of music. You're writing a lot of music. You're putting it out. Um, and a lot of it, I would imagine, you're sort of quarterbacking the whole process. Um, and it seems, there's like the goal of doing this seems to be just the enjoyment of making music. You know, like you're putting out your records, you're putting out your music, and then also, you know, you're collecting vinyl and digital music. But the only reason behind everything, it seems to be, is just it's fun, it's enjoyable, you're having a good time doing it. It's a very refreshing to hear that, because so much of, you know, music nowadays is still, I think, wrapped up in like, what can I get from this? How can I, you know, accomplish this goal? How can the most amount of people hear my music? You know, rather than the
Mhm.
quality of just the person who really likes it, I want to try to get it out there. It's just really
Yes.
wonderful, like to meet a kindred spirit who's like, no, 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 I'm making music for me because it's fun, and you know, I'm sure people will connect with it, but that's not the ultimate goal.
Well, to give you a backstory, I started playing music in bands when I was 16. So this was like 98. I'm 42 now. So I was playing bands at 16. I dropped out of high school sophomore year to tour. I was like I was opening for bands like Slipknot, Mudvayne. Like we were a new metal band. I thought we were going to be rock stars. Imploded after a few years before we could get a record deal. Started the whole process again with another band, kind of a Chevelle, Deftones sort of alt metal band. Did the whole thing again, kind of imploded. Started a emo, screamo, pop punk band again. Same story. After three bands, touring, writing records, imploding, no financial success, all the pressure that I put on myself to like make it, I just walked away from music for like a decade. I went back to school, got a bachelor's, master's degree, started a career, started a family, and then my wife was like, "Why don't you get back into it?" And we moved to Richmond, Virginia, where we were from, or I was from Austin, and I met her in Austin. She's from Richmond. Moved here. Our daughter was on the way, um, first child, and I started back in a band with some guys I found on Craigslist here. And then I was like, I had only played guitar before, and I was like, I've always wanted to sing, and they were like, go for it. So that kind of kicked it all off. And then the pandemic hit. That band broke up. I started programming drums and playing all the instruments myself and recording vocals. That's how Breaths came to life. And then everything else is just, and honestly, if I hadn't had that early on, like so much pressure on myself trying to make it and be successful, I would probably care about that more now. It's just, I've been through that and I can't go through that again. So now it's just for the pure passion and joy of creating it. I mean, I love when people hear it. When I see my plays go up on Spotify, like I like that people are listening to it. That makes me feel good, but it's not. If I went on Spotify and it's like 20 people listen to your record, I would still make records, you know, versus, 22 people that listen now or whatever it is. That was my dad joke of the day. But anyway, yeah, absolutely. If I didn't have, that's why I do so much, because it's honestly my evening hobby. Like when my kids are asleep, my wife goes to bed, I stay up later. I come down to my basement office music studio and I write music. And that's why I write a record a year or more, because that's my free time hobby. That's what I do. Instead of, I mean, I watch TV too, but instead of, like, a lot of my friends are gamers, I don't own a video game system for that reason, because I know I'd probably write less music. So yeah, anyway, that's what I do.
It's definitely a good hobby. Good hobby to have. Yeah. I could see
That's
how it
my
could
life
be.
story.
I could see how that could be really fulfilling, and and the fact that you're not really doing it for others, you're doing it more for yourself, and I could see how that could be really rewarding and fulfilling.
I'm honestly shocked that it's gotten so far. Like, with the Roseneath record, it got put out on vinyl by a label that's put out like Appleseed Cast and Far, which is Far is one of my favorite bands from the 90s, like emo alt rock bands. They've done stuff, bands that I listen to, and they put out our record. And if you would ask me 5 years ago, I would have never thought I would be releasing anything on that level and having people actually care. I thought it was just going to be a couple people would hear it and then that'd be the end of it. But I'm still surprised. to be honest. And like my last record, I had the singer from Cryptopsy on a song. I've had the singer from Frontier guest on a song. All of these things are just insane to me. Uh, all because they've reached out to me and they like the records and they offered to do guest vocals and I took them up on their offer. So yeah, it's just been fun.
Well, when
Yeah,
the
that's.
go on, Heather, please.
I was just gonna say that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well,
It's,
when the music is good, I think these days that it's a little bit more tricky to navigate the landscape because anyone can essentially make music and put it out. So it's a little bit harder to find quality stuff. But if you do, the it resonates with you. People will make the effort to get the record or spread it with word of mouth or something like that. So that's I'm sure. I mean, that's what I'm hoping that someone out there is going to watch this episode and check out Melt Away, um, either the full length or just the EP, and maybe they'll see one of those gaze tags on Bandcamp, and that'll hook them. Sludge gaze, what's that?
let's find out.
Let's find
I don't even know what it is, to be honest. It sounds like it fits. Why not?
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, my go-to line always is the reason why most of these tags or genre labels exist is to give people something to argue about. So,
Yeah. That's a good
really,
point.
I mean, I guess it helps to classify things sometimes, but at some point, I feel like you're just cannibalizing yourself with the descriptions. Um, so, who knows? Either way,
Yeah.
um, I really enjoyed the EP. Um, it did give me the feeling of like I said, from sinking into the carpet in Train Spotting without having to do the heroin. So that was a bonus.
That is a big bonus.
Yeah. So I hope I hope that's kind of what you want people to get when they listen to the album, is sort of connect with it in that way of a relaxation type thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to initially I thought I would go like less, I guess, heavy because the guitars are still very like fuzzy, very like I don't know, very heavy gain. I thought I would go like strictly shoegaze, but then I got in a big My Bloody Valentine kick, and I was like, well, there's still you can do shoegaze and still be heavy. And I'm really into bands like Cloakroom and Nothing and stuff that where they do like a heavy sound, but it's definitely got that relaxed shoegazy like foundation. And the whole record is honestly like that. Like my past Breaths releases, I feel were kind of all over the place. Like I'd throw in a new metal riff and a doom riff, and I would have a 12-minute song and a 2-minute song and grindcore and black metal, and it's just all over the place. I kind of wanted to rein it in a little bit on this one and make it a more cohesive, like without every song sounding the same, but still having like the same feel or like similar vibe to it. I probably will never do that again though, because I'm too sporadic.
Well, I think
We'll see.
you were successful this time in doing that.
Thanks. Yeah, I 6 more songs on the record, so I'll definitely send that over to you all.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be fun to listen to that.
Sure. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what's next? I mean, you have the full length of Melt Away that will be coming out. Do you have other plans for Breaths in the near future? Is it? I mean, I know you said you're pretty much writing all the time, and you put out about an album a year. So
I have a B-side from my last record that's more like it's a longer song, more post-metal, like has some black metal stuff in it. That's coming out in May to just confuse people. While I'm trying to put out a record, I'll just put out a single that has nothing to do with the record. But again, I just do this for fun. So I'm putting that song out, and then I have not picked up the guitar to start writing for the next Breath, and usually they overlap. Usually I'm kind of like this record came out because I had already started writing Somé stuff. And then when I shifted it to Breaths, I already had a whole record written. I just had to finish it. But I think I'll take my time, and there might be 2 years in between records this time. I don't know. I
That's
say
all
that,
good.
but who knows? Or maybe I'll have writer's block. I've been really lucky that I've been able to sit down and just continuously create. But it's inevitable at some point. I've got to hit a wall. We'll see.
We will see. But in the meantime, we'll have Melt Away to listen to, and the full length is right around the corner.
And the full length will be self-titled, and so
Okay.
it's Breaths. Yeah,
Cool.
kind of
Well,
throwing out the idea of this is the Breath sound now.
gotcha.
But
Well, I dug what I heard. The EP is only 17 minutes, but it was enough to get me onto the bandwagon. So I look forward to
thanks.
hearing the full length. And Heather, do you have any more questions?
No,
No.
I sure
Well,
don't.
yeah. I mean, this was. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and
Yeah, thanks for
I
having
hope
me.
a few more people discover Breaths and some of your other projects, and we
That'd
look
be
forward
awesome.
to hearing the full length album.
All right, I'll send it your way. Thank you both.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.